Type 1 is kindly co-sponsored by Ipsomed My Life Diabetes Care. Their My Life Ipso pump is super small and super light. It looks beautiful and focuses on keeping things simple with the help of the My Life app. Find out more on the My Life Diabetes Care website. Hi everyone and welcome to Type 1, a podcast that delves into the obscure, complex and challenging world of life with Type 1 diabetes. I'm Jen Greaves, and each week with the help of some brilliant guests, I'll be showing that there is no normal when it comes to handling this whopper of a chronic condition, because we're all pretty much figuring out the messiness of day-to-day life with diabetes as we go. And most of all, even though it doesn't always feel like it, we are absolutely not alone. My guest this week is Ella. Ella is a 17-year-old student from Leeds and has lived with type 1 diabetes since she was 9 years old. Hello, Ella.
Hello.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm really excited to speak to you because I think the age you're at now is a really interesting, possibly challenging time to live with type 1 diabetes, and there's so much happening in life. So
agreed.
Let's just get straight into it. So you were 9 when you were diagnosed with type 1 in 2011?
Yep.
What do you remember about the weeks leading up to the diagnosis?
So my first ever memory of being poorly was I was actually abroad in Turkey, and I was very thin. I looked like death. And I went to, it were all inclusive, and I went to the shop where they were doing fresh food, and I got 2 kebabs and a pizza all to myself, and I ate it all at once, and then I was still losing weight rapidly. And it was to the point where me and my family were like, hey, something's wrong here. You know, she's eating such a large amount and she's just losing the weight. Like by the minute, it were rapid. And that was the first time we remembered that, this is something wrong. Once we got home off the holiday, we went straight to the doctors. They actually turned us away and they said, look, there's nothing wrong, you know, you'll be fine, sort of thing. Me at 9 years old, I had no clue what was going on. Whereas Mum was like, no, I think something's wrong. So we give it a couple of weeks, and then we went back to the doctors, got turned away again. So goodness. It was just a state of, we knew deep in ourselves that we knew that something was wrong with me, whereas everyone was just denying us and saying, no, you're wrong.
What were they saying? Were they saying you had some sort of infection?
Yeah, it was always, she's got a cold, she's young, she's growing, you know, all the usual. And it was to the point where we actually got to it when we just requested, can you please do a blood test of just some normal, like, you know, like blood counts and stuff like that. And luckily, type 1 diabetes was on the blood test. And when we finally got that blood test, they said, right, get yourself off to hospital.
Oh my God, so it must have been terrifying for your parents, and B, quite lucky. Like 2 weeks strikes me as quite a long time, because when it comes on, it comes along, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I guess, were you just feeling worse and worse? Did you know by then that...
To me, it was always tired. I was really tired. For a 9-year-old girl, you're full of energy, you know, and I'd spend my weekends in bed. And, you know, whereas all my friends were, you know, were the age where you'd play out from like 10 in the morning, won't come home to about 8 o'clock at night for your tea. And me, I was spending it in bed, because after 5 days at school, I needed that like recovery time to like build it. I have that now as a teenager, but for different reasons. Whereas now, at age 9, I was completely exhausted. Yeah.
Right. And you requested a blood test. Did you have any idea about type 1 diabetes? Did you spot the warning signs as signs of diabetes, or your parents?
Well, yeah, we do have type 1 in the family with my auntie, who she was diagnosed at a very young age. She's 50 now. She had a lot of complications, whereas she's had 2 amputated legs and a kidney and pancreas transplant. She's doing amazing now. She's an inspiration to me. But from a young age, seeing an auntie with amputated legs, and to say that's because of type 1 diabetes, when the word type 1 kind of came into my head when I was first diagnosed, it was sort of a state of, well, my auntie's got type 1, she's got no legs, I'm going to have no legs, this is going to happen. So it did startle me at first, but parents-wise, we've said, she's weeing a lot, she's tired, could it be type 1? But I think, especially with my dad, who is my dad's sister, he had the fear of, well, I don't want her to, and like he pushed it to the back of his mind, no, it's not diabetes, because of his experience growing up with my auntie.
There was some fear there.
Yeah, he wanted to deny it all and say, yep, the doctors are right, whereas mum was like a bit more, on the ball, saying like, yes, this is it, but bless my dad, he obviously had that fear of...
Yeah, because I guess if that's your reference point of what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes, and you're suddenly looking at your auntie, who thankfully is doing amazingly now, but that, that is quite extreme as a 9-year-old to sort of take on, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
And so when that diagnosis came, do you remember how you felt?
I remember being in the hospital, and I remember my parents being in floods of tears when they first got diagnosed. But as a 9-year-old, again, it was that I always describe it as like a numb feeling, because what am I supposed to do? I don't know where I'm going. When you're 9 years old, you don't know what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow, never mind this lifelong condition that you've got to deal with. So to me, I'd love to say, oh yeah, it broke my heart, upset me, but it didn't. But because I just thought at 9, I was like, right, okay, why, what do I do?
Yeah, what's
it was
next?
That numb feeling of, I don't know where I stand at all, so.
I think I had a similar thing in that I specifically remember being told I couldn't eat sweets again because at 8 years old, I was nearly 9. That's what you care about, right?
Exactly.
And then I think for the rest of it, it was my parents that did all the worrying, and I was just enjoying, to be honest, this is so tragic, but like I was enjoying the attention and everyone making a fuss over me, which is a bit ridiculous. But
I think more of my upset feelings was for my mum and dad. Like I saw my mum and dad upset, so I was more upset for them, thinking, whereas me, I had my head kind of in a place of, I don't really know much about what's going on. I didn't understand it. So that lack of understanding did just create this bit of a, well, what's next? Why were I not upset? I don't know. I just wasn't.
And did that sort of hit home quite quickly when you had to start? Did you start injecting yourself straight away and things like that?
My mum actually said, no, you're not giving her any injections yet. I want to speak to the main guy, the main doctor. I want reassurance of somebody. So we were waiting for this doctor, and like anticipation was like growing, and little 9-year-old me was like, whoa, what's this injection? What are they injecting me with? What's the big deal? And so I had like visions of these people coming in with like having to hold it with both hands and stuff like that, because it was just growing.
Mega needle.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And then this doctor came in, and it was great. And I really do remember this, when he just sat down to my mum and he said, look, if we don't give her this shot of insulin, and we never give her this shot of insulin, she will die. So to me, I was like, get it in me, that sort of thing. And I remember nurse coming in with the needle, and I thought, I'll do this, and I said at 9, I was like, I didn't want this nurse touching me. I was like, I'm going to do this myself. And I remember, when you squeeze the skin, you do it all properly, and you clean the area. And I mean, that was your first shot. And at that time, at that point in my life, I never knew that I'd be the one of so many shots, I mean, thousands and thousands and millions. I mean, that's it, isn't it? And that were my first insulin injection of the many.
So you had that sense of ownership straight away. Has that helped you as you've sort of lived with diabetes and grown with diabetes? Have you retained that sense of ownership and independence?
Definitely. But as a teenager, I can admit, sometimes I get a bit lazy. Sometimes it's nice for my mum, oh, Mum, will you just put how many carbs is that, Mum? Can you just get my insulin pen and just put the injection thing in for me? You do get that laziness, but me, I do always take I know what I want to do in my own head. I sit and I think, right, this is it. And if someone says to me, oh, Ella, should you be doing that, or my mum will go, oh, Ella, I think you should do this amount of units. In my head, I'm quite stubborn. I'm like, well, no, because this is my body. This is, I'm dealing with the effects of it. I'm having to take the injection, sort of back off and let me deal with it, because in my head, I just think these people around me, including doctors, and that's just me being really stubborn, and I obviously am very thankful for the doctors, but when they tell me something, sometimes I just want to snap back and go, it's my disease, and I'm in control. I'm putting it in my body, so I should be able to have. And I mean, people are great in understanding that, but that's probably just my personality.
But I think that it's valid. It's your condition, and that's going to stand you in good stead as you do more and more on your own. And when you if you head off to uni and things like that, I think that did help me. So I was pretty much the same. Although my parents were obviously taking on a lot more than I realised, because in my head I was just eating a few snacks. But as I carried on through life, I didn't then think, oh, I shouldn't be doing this now because like I've got this condition in tow. Did you ever consider stopping what you were doing in terms of like the life you were living, the friends?
Again, I'm very strong in the way of I'll never let anything stop me, whether that be diabetes or anything else. So throughout my life, I always say when you're living with like a lifelong condition like type 1 diabetes, it doesn't stop you doing anything. You've just got to do things with precaution, and which is what I do most of the time, obviously. And I do try to live everything I would do. And I have to ask the question sometimes. I'll go to do something, I'll go, would I do it if I want diabetic? And then if I said the answer is yes, I've got to do it anyway. I've got to, because why should you let anything stop you, really? Yeah.
Brilliant. And do you get that interference? Does that happen a lot from people who, you know, they're obviously looking out for you, but like, does your mum respect it when you say, no, mum?
Sometimes. I mean, there's been situations where my mum sometimes I know she knows best, but sometimes I have to say, basically, bugger off, mum. This is me. And I will go against it, and I will for my own peace of mind that like I've done it. And if it goes wrong, then I learn from it. But mum's always been very like, let me do everything as I want. And she's given me that freedom with or without diabetes. She's great like that. But she has no choice now. At the age of 17, I will do what I want anyway.
And what about friends? I imagine you're sort of carrying this thing for life and you're figuring it out as you go. And at that age, I sort of remember there were like suddenly a lot of sleepovers and things like that.
Yeah.
Do you remember any specific experiences around that sort of thing?
Well, I remember when I was really, really young. I first slept it was like my first ever sleepover being diagnosed. And I was at my friend's house. This was when I was on injections. And I did my long-acting insulin. And I used to take it about around 6 o'clock. And me and my friend went to sleep at like midnight, you know, being the extra cool kids we are. And I woke up in the middle of the night and my first thought was, oh my God, have I done my long-acting injection? And I was panicking so much because I wanted to do everything right. So then my mum would be, oh, she's done really well at a sleepover. She can go to many, many more. So I wanted to do everything perfect. And I woke up and I was like, I've not done it. So I injected myself at 1 a.m. with another insulin shot of long acting. So basically I had overdose. And then I woke up again an hour later and thought, oh my God, I've done it twice. And I remember ringing my mum off my friend's phone because I only had an iMessage on or something and I couldn't ring. It was all like Wi-Fi text. And I rung off my friend's phone. I was like, Mum, I've done something. And she was like, oh my God, what have you done? I was like, I've given 2 insulin shots of my long acting. So we ended up going to hospital. And I remember like the outpatient letter saying child overdose. So that's always kind of stuck with me. But then again, that was all because I was trying my best to do everything possibly right and probably overthought it way too much that then I'd ended up in that situation. But I mean, as time's gone on, after sleepover, all my friends are like wary. And I mean, my friends wake up to my alarms on my glucose monitor more than I do because I'm so alarm immune, and they wake up like, oh my God, are you okay? And my friends are great with it. I mean, sometimes, again, me being stubborn, I do snap a little bit, and when they say, Ella, are you all right? What's your bloods on? I kind of just want to go again, oh, please, it's fine. You know, I can deal with it sort of thing.
I've got this.
Yeah, but I know they've got best interests at heart, so I thank all my friends for that. You know, they're great, absolutely great, yeah. When me and my friend, we went away to Leeds Fest, like, because I knew I'd be with her for a long that time, she went on my Dexcom to, like, follow it on her phone, and if we'd leave each other for 5 minutes, I'd have, like, 10 text messages, like, oh my God, your bloods, oh my God, where are you? I'm coming for you right now. And bless her, she was great like that. And then I'll take her off again. And then next person, when I'm doing something with them, I'll say, do you want to get on? And they'll jump on, and it's all great like that. I mean, I have a good relationship with my friends where they actually want to be on board with it. They are so interested, and I'm so grateful for that.
And I think as the technology becomes more available, it's quite cool, like,
yeah,
isn't it? Like,
I follow Ella's blood readings, like, what the heck?
Yeah, that's great. You've got that strong set of friends, like, amazing. So what about school in general? Like, obviously teenage years, they're quite formative, and there's a lot going on. Did you encounter any kind of misunderstanding or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, school's hard anyway. When when you've got a different teacher in high school, it was always difficult because you have a different teacher for every subject, different days. And it felt like you were constantly repeating yourself saying, no, miss, I've got to do this. Excuse me, miss, can I do this? Sorry, miss, that's my machine, But in primary school, I have a really significant memory. It was a PE lesson, and this is when I used to do everything perfect. And I tested my blood sugar before I went for my PE lesson, and it was on the lower side. And I went to this teacher. Excuse me, miss, I'm on low. I don't feel well enough to do PE. So this teacher, they used to have like the teacher's cupboard where they'd have all like the glue sticks and the pens and stuff like that. And this is where I used to keep my medication. And she put me in this cupboard. She said, right, you go in there. Basically, like, threw a Kit Kat at my face. Locked me in this cupboard, took the full class down to the PE, like, courtyard, and just left me in this cupboard. And I remember I was like 10-year-old me, I was just thinking, I'm scared now. I was on my own. It was all still new to me. I was still young. And I was like, I'm on my own in this little cupboard. What do I do?
And also low blood sugar.
And yeah, but as well as that, yeah. And, it ended up with me like screaming till the next teacher heard me next door and she came in. I mean, that was a misunderstanding because this teacher obviously thought, she can treat herself in there. She'll be all right.
She's safe in there.
Yeah. And and when at 10-year-olds, in primary school, when you are a little Miss Goody Two-Shoes, which I was, a little teacher's pet, I didn't want to argue back and be like, no, miss. Whereas in high school, when the hormones kicked in, I was a bit more like, no, miss, I'm doing this. You had that bit more of a guts in high school to kind of do as you please. And I did have one really good teacher in high school and she were insane, always looking after me. And even if another teacher didn't understand or had that lack of education where she would try and tell me different, I'd run to this other teacher and be like, oh my God, miss, help. And she'd always have my back. So I was very lucky that I had at least one person in my high school who supported me, yeah.
That's amazing. You only need that one person, don't you? Because it is kind of a flip, I guess, of authority almost. You know your condition better, whereas the teachers are there. They're that kind of on the hierarchy. They're above you. You're supposed to do what they say. But actually, when it comes to you and your diabetes, you're the expert, and that must be a difficult challenge, not only for you to gain the confidence to step up and say, hang on, this isn't quite right, but also for them to have that table turn as well. I mean, there's no excuse for locking you in a cupboard.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, high school was hard because, supply night, I always remember, this has actually just come to me, there were a supply teacher in, it was a science class, and I was testing my blood, all I was doing was test my blood. I mean, I drew blood from my finger, and this teacher came up and was like, what are you doing? She and I'd never met before, she was just in for a day. I was like, I'm type 1 diabetic. And she accused me of lying about being diabetic. She's like, you've got your phone out. I was like, this is not my phone. This is my blood testing kit. I had blood on my finger. And I was saying, look, I've just put a needle in my skin to draw blood. And she went, no, you're lying to me. And she accused me of lying about my own disease. And I just remember, I mean, that's laughable. I was just like, who is this woman? Why would anybody lie about having type 1 to get your phone out in class, really?
Did you feel like you had the authority at that point to be like, no?
I think it was a bad day anyway, so I think I was in a bad mood anyway. I think I did snap. I think I probably ended up storming out, knowing me, but I really significantly remember that because I went to other teachers and even everyone else were like, what? And then that's when we realised that things like care plans needed to be in place and it needed to be like registered somewhere if anybody was like in my care, that it needed to be written somewhere that I'm type 1 because that brought it to everyone's attention that in that classroom that woman had no idea I had a medical condition. So that's when we started putting things in place like care plans. I mean, I think I should carry a care plan in my back pocket because I'm with people, different people every day. And sometimes when you just sit and you're like, right, I'm type 1, this is me. I'd love to just hand them a piece of paper like, this is everything. Read that before you meet me on Saturday and then job's a good one.
Do you feel sometimes like you want to engage in that conversation and explain and be like, yeah, it's this and I do this and it's okay and sometimes it's this and then other days you're just like, nah, not today.
I mean, it's always what side of bed I wake up on. I know that sounds stupid, but sometimes I can have such a good positive outlook where I want to educate everybody. I want everyone to be on board. And then other days I'll pretend I'm not. I'll just, it won't be mentioned. I'll turn my alarms off on my CGM. I'll just try and live and not think about it. But other days I'm really on the ball and I'm all positive and this is me, this is my type 1 and we're going to cure this, it just depends on my mood, as it does everyone.
Exactly. I think it's the same as like in my head, yes, I want to be someone who can spread positivity in the community or expose the realities of living with type 1, which is exactly what you're doing right now. So I think these sort of little anecdotes and stories are so important because that is real life. You've had to go through these things. But equally, some days it's just like when I think, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the gym, and it comes to 4:00 and I'm like, nah.
Not in the mood.
You know what I mean? We're like, we've got lots of different sides to us, and you can't just put diabetes in a box because it's a human being. You are definitely not alone in feeling like that.
Hope so.
You say that as well, and you're only 17 and you've just done the most incredible amount of advocacy work, spreading awareness, really being, I'd say, quite a role model for a lot of people with type 1. And I mean that. So
Thank you.
to have done that at 17 is incredible. It's very, like, really impressive. I think I was just worrying about, I don't know, the first boyfriend, and that was about it.
That's all there too, don't worry.
Was there a turning point for you where it went from, this is something I deal with that no one around me has, to, hang on, I can use this experience that I've got and maybe educate other people or help other people who are also living with type 1?
Yeah. So basically, we're all online. Me and my mum were looking through, like, support forums, all them sort of things to get in contact with people with the same sort of diseases. And we came across JDRF, the charity. And locally, there was a charity walk just in my town of Leeds. And so my mum was like, why don't we do that? Why don't we get some family together? And I said, oh, Mum, can I bring a couple of my friends? Well, we ended up with a coach of 30 of all my friends who had all got sponsored by all their family. And to us, it was like a day out. It were good fun. And in my head, I was thinking, well, everyone's enjoying themselves. Everybody wants to be here. And then they're also taking something about type 1 home. And it made me think about how much awareness it would create, because every single one of my friends on that coach would have took their sponsor paper to their grandmas, to their aunties, to their uncles, their other friends. And it made me think that everyone had asked that question of, what are you raising money for? And then everyone would be on board of learning about this type 1. So to me, in my head, it was all about awareness at first. And that was when it all started. And then it just grew bigger and bigger as the years went on. Yeah.
So where is it at today? Like, tell me a bit about the work that you do.
Right. So after a couple of charity walks, bake sales, things like that, we started with our first event in 2016. And this was in our really small town. And we hosted an event with 120 people. And to us, that were like massive. We were like, oh God, this is a bit much, steady on. And then I won a Children's of Courage Award in Leeds. And it was in the Royal Armouries. And I remember sat, and I was looking around and I'm thinking, this is massive, how many people are here, wearing the nice suits and the nice ball dresses. And I went to my mum, I went, I want to go big. Let's do something like this and raise money, Mum, let's go for it. So I think I pressured Mum into it a bit. Like, I know, let's work as a team, let's get this massive thing going. And then we started our first event in 2017. We held an event in the Queen's in Leeds. It was like a black tie dinner sort of thing. It was amazing. I mean, you don't enjoy it the same when you organise things 100%, because all your mind's thinking is, that should be like this should be going like this. And with all the entertainment and the people that we had so many things going on. But it was one of the best nights of my life. And then we held it again in 2018 last year. And now we've raised about 50,000, yeah? Yeah, about £50,000 now, yeah. So we have got one planned for 2020. We've took a year off. I think we all needed to breathe as a family. And we're held in even bigger next year, again at the Queen's in Leeds, which I'm actually so excited for. Yeah.
Yes, it's
Get
amazing.
a nice ball dress.
Yeah, if anything, it's a good excuse to get dolled up, right? And I think it's just incredible that you've taken that on at this age. And it shows what's possible as well, doesn't it?
Well, it was, like I said, everything was to do with awareness. Money wasn't a thing with me. Obviously, everything with money was to get to a cure. So every penny counts. But for me, it all just started with getting people educated, getting people on board. And I think my mum had a bit of, it put peace in her mind, because she thought all these people around her are like a carer for her well-being. So as much as they get interested in these events and they learn something, they take something home, they're going to have a bit more understanding of her daughter's disease, obviously. So then everyone would be a bit more wary. So in her eyes, it was like, oh, thank God, the people, she's not hiding it and stuff like that. Obviously, you raise a couple of quid with it, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger to obviously raising big money.
And you and your mum are an absolutely incredible duo. And
we are the dream team.
You're quite a force to be reckoned with. How has her personality and her outlook when it comes to your diabetes shaped your outlook when it comes to your diabetes?
Well, I've always said this. I mean, my mum and my dad are complete polar opposites. If I want to cry and be told I'm amazing and get a hug and be told I'm a little princess, I'd always go to my dad, because my dad is so soft, he's great like that, and I love to just talk to my dad and have a cuddle, and he makes me feel so much better about myself. Whereas my mum is a bit more hard-headed. She's a bit more, come on, Ella, get yourself together. We're going to do something, don't cry about it. So sometimes when I need that bit of a kick up the bottom, to get myself back in place, a bit more motivated, I'd always go to my mum. So I'm quite lucky that I've got both options with my parents. And my mum has been great in the fact that she motivates me. She makes me do things. Without my mum, I'd be so slack, I'd be so lazy, But I'm so lucky I've got her, because she's great with making me do things. She gets me out there. She's always stood behind me, plugging me, basically. She's great like that, yeah.
Type 1 is kindly co-sponsored by Dexcom UK and Ireland. The continuous glucose monitoring system allows you to see exactly what your blood glucose is doing with just a quick glance at your compatible smart device. Imagine that. As a Dexcom warrior, I can tell you that this discreet little device has been a game changer when it comes to freeing up my headspace of all the diabetes stuff. Head to dexcom.com for more information. Should we talk a bit about your management? So you've switched from injections to an Omnipod insulin pump now, haven't you? How did you approach that? What made you start thinking about switching?
Well, it got to the point where I'm a big snack eater, so I'm always eating snacks and stuff like that. So I got to the point where I was injecting like 15 times a day. And to me, that was like so tiring, so annoying. I was getting bruises everywhere. And I mean, I was about 12, 13 and I was going into high school, and I remember having the conversation with my mum like, oh, when you've got your school uniform on your skirt on, I'd have to untuck my shirt. And I was like, Mum, am I going to have to inject in front of everyone? And we'd always known about pumps, but to me, I had this massive fear of the wires. I never wanted the wires being on shirt. So I was always like, nope, don't want a pump. So I remember sitting and Googling when I was about to go into high school, insulin pump, no wire. And it came up with this American video on Omnipod. And I was like, being the spoiled princess I am, only child, I went to my mum, I was like, Mum, I want this. So she was like, again, yeah, right, okay, we'll get it. If you want that, we'll get it. And we took it to our hospital and we said, what is this insulin pump? Omnipod, can we have some more information? And they told us, you'll never get that. No. So we were like, right, okay. You can always try. And it was all about applying for it and applying for the funding. I mean, after 3 times of applying for the funding of the Omnipod, we did finally get it. And to me, it's been so great because I stick it on, put a t-shirt over, and it's covered to me, and then it's all done through one device. And I just love that. Like, it's like breathable to me, if you know what I mean. Like, I can live with it more, and I don't have to be getting it out. And it was great for going into high school because it almost covered it a little bit for me and made me feel a bit more normal. Even though I know I'm normal, I know that I could be a little bit more like everyone else.
Just on a day-to-day, it's a bit more discreet than whipping out a needle.
Yeah, right. Agreed. Obviously, as a teenager, I do wear 2 devices. I do wear the CGM and the Omnipod. And sometimes, though, that can be it can overface me. Like, it's a lot. It's wearing 2 machines every single day of my life. On normal days, I'm cool with it. I'll wear it. But when you're going on a night out and you're wearing a tight little black dress, wearing 2 machines, it's quite annoying. And I will go out and people will be like, what's that? And I mean, it frustrated me so much when growing up and learning to go out and being around and socialising with other people. And to me, I got to the point where I rebelled a bit, where I took my pod off and I just injected because I wanted to go into the toilet, inject, leave it in the toilet, come back out, be this normal person with nothing on me. And obviously that was causing such issues with my bloods because my background insulin wasn't running and I was trying to mimic it by injecting all the time. And so I went to my hospital. at this point in my life, I had moved hospitals to another hospital where there's a great team. And I said to them, I said, look, I'm going on nights out. I'm taking my insulin pump off and injecting. What can I do to make this easier? They completely respected my views. They said, right, if you want your pod day to day, but maybe every so often you just want to have a little holiday from it, we can help you. And now I do take a 12-hour, like a long-acting injection. I mean, this is like every so often, every once in a blue moon, when I'm just in one of them moods where I want to be completely free from all the devices. It's nice to just feel normal, and it's nice for nothing to be on show. So, I mean, it's helped me with being more confident when I'm out, being around new people, because other days it's absolutely fine. I will explain it to you. But if I'm in one of them moods where I just want to look like everyone else, I will take them off and I will inject for my own, like, comfort, if that makes sense, because I feel better, I feel more confident, I'm on it then. Yeah.
I think that's such an incredible story, and I'm so glad you told it, because like that really resonates. I avoided an insulin pump for so many years for exactly the same reason. I knew that it would probably help my life with type 1, but there was just something about having this very medical box attached to me, and I didn't even know that there were pumps without wires. So the fact that you had the like forethought to Google whether this existed shows.
I was
like,
Googling everything.
Yeah. But also I think there probably are a lot of people that don't want to venture into the world of insulin pumps for that reason.
Yeah.
It's so valid to want to feel sometimes like you're just one of your friends, and obviously you are, but sometimes you're Ella with, sometimes I'm Jen with type 1, sometimes you're Ella with type 1, but sometimes you're allowed to just want to be Ella. So thank you for telling me that. And I think that, a lot of people would take something away from that. And also that's such a positive story that your hospital took that seriously. You know, it's I'm going on nights out.
Yeah, it was the honesty they respected, I think. I mean, when you're permanently attached to something day in, day out, you would get frustrated. Just like if you wore a plaster every single day of your life, you just want to rip it off sometimes. But with it was always weighing up the pros and the cons for me. And on a day-to-day basis, on a normal day, the pros definitely won with the insulin pump. But just on them odd few Saturday nights, Friday nights, and every couple of months, when I just thought, I just don't want this anymore, I just said to my hospital, I said, look, what can I do? I'm running myself high, help me out, sort of thing. And I think they respected that honesty. And because they are so on the ball, they understand what it's like to be a teenager with type 1. They wanted to do everything to make me feel comfortable, but also run them bloods nicely. Yeah,
and long term that's going to show you A, what's possible, that there's sometimes other solutions, and B, hopefully, reduce your risk of complications and things like that. Whereas if you just thought, the only thing to do here is to rip my pod off and not wear it, you're running a bit more of a risk there. So
definitely.
I'm really happy you found a solution as well, and you can rock out in that black dress. So also last year you went to your first festival, didn't you?
Oh yeah. I mean, that was an experience and a half, with or without diabetes. I mean, I had the best weekend of my life. But yes, diabetes did make things a little bit more complicated, yep. I mean, it all started when it was the first night, it was the Thursday night of Leeds Fest. And I was with my good friend, who's a very deep sleeper, in the middle of the night. And we'd been out, it was about 6 a.m, we came back to the tent. And I looked in my bum bag and I was getting tucked up in bed, and I were like rummaging. And my heart just dropped, and I couldn't find the device that linked up to my insulin pump. And I was looking everywhere, and that panic and the fear was just, what do I do? What do I do? I'm in the middle of this field, this massive field, and I haven't got, in my eyes, my life support. I have not got it. And I remember I got up out of bed, and I didn't want to disturb any of my friends. I didn't want to be that friend. I put my raincoat on, and I traced every footstep I'd been in the forest, where the rave had been. I'd been to the first aid. I'd been to the lost property. I even went to every food van and drink place I could, just in case somebody said, I found this, and bobbed it back there. And there were no sign of it absolutely at all. But so then I had to think, right, what do I do? I haven't got my machine. Where do I start? And I thought, do I ring my mum? Do I ring my dad? Which is the best person to ring? I thought to myself, neither. I just thought, if I ring them and say, look, I've lost my insulin pump device, that had been straight on foot down M1 coming to get me, and that had took me out and said, no, come on, we're getting you home. And I thought, well, then I don't want that. I want to spend the weekend with my friends, but I've got to do something here. So yet again, luckily, I had my injection pen with me, and I was so on the ball for the next 3 days. I injected every hour to mimic like my background insulin to keep me as steady as possible. I mean, I was taking less insulin anyway because of all the dancing, you know, you don't eat as much festivals. But I was so on the ball. I was making sure everything run perfectly. And because my mum can see my Dexcom CGM results on her phone, I didn't want it to go the tiniest little bit high because I didn't want her to get any suspicion of something was wrong. So I kept everything. It were the best 4 days of my blood sugars ever because I was just perfect and I was in that grey area all the time. And I remember then on the Monday, my mum came to pick me up and I was with my friend and she went, "Do not tell your mum when I'm in the car." I said, okay, because we all thought she was going to blow. And I sat in the front of the car and I just thought, I'm going to do it. And I turned around and I went, "Mum." She went, "Yeah, I've lost my insulin pump device." And I think she just breathed for a minute and then she was like, "So what did you do?" I said, "Right." And I had it all prepared like a script. I said, "I injected this every hour. I kept an eye on my blood sugars. I had snacks with me constantly. I mimicked my background insulin." And she kind of were like, "Well, well done. You've done it." And she went, "There's a spare one at home, Ella. You could have rung me and I'd have dropped one off." And I thought, are you joking me? But I think it were almost like a learning curve at the same time. I mean, it was the first time on my own I'd been without, it's like a mini holiday really, it was like a 4-day break. And I was without my mum and dad and I thought, I'm dealing with it on my own and I'm going to deal with it on my own. And I learned how to like adjust to what was going on and stuff like that. So in my eyes, I'm kind of glad it happened because I panicked at first, obviously, as you would, but it kind of made me realise that I can do this on my own. I don't need to ring mummy and daddy every time something's wrong. I don't even need my friends to come with me. I'm an adult now, I can deal with it. And I mean, I did it, and then I've got 3 festivals booked this summer, so yes, I don't think I think my mum trusts me from it, yep.
Yeah, like you say, that I guess it's when it goes wrong that you really realise how much you do know, because it becomes so instinctual, doesn't it? This everyday stuff, all these decisions we're making. And I think it's
second nature, yeah.
Yeah. So when things don't go quite as planned is when, well, certainly when I've learned a bit more about myself, and I'm like you, I have an absolute knack of collecting these ridiculous experiences. Yeah. But I think in that same way, it's because I will just say yes to things. Do you think having diabetes and having these experiences is shaping you to be more confident and more assured about, who you are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always said, I think I've always been maturer than my friends. It was so obvious. But I always say, I think I matured more when I was younger because life showed me like the worst at a young age. So you do have to grow up that little bit faster, and you've got to take the pros from it. I live my life saying I've met some amazing people because I'm type 1. I've done some amazing things because I'm type 1. And if I wasn't type 1, I wouldn't know these people. I would have never done that. And it pushed me more so than ever, I think, because it makes I'm a bit resilient like that. If something's wrong with me, it makes me want to do things more, to kind of say, sod you type 1, I'll do it. And it probably pushed me more than it would if I'd never been diagnosed. I've done some amazing things with amazing people, and it has shaped me who I am because, I mean, it's made me a lot better at maths with all the carb countings, I must admit that. It's loads of things I believe I've got because of my type 1, traits and personality. It's got a lot to do with it. You live with it day in, day out. You can't avoid it. It does shape you.
And as you've had these sort of more experiences as a teenager, as your world's expanding, have you relaxed in the sense of, did you ever feel that pressure that you needed to be perfect, quote marks, perfect as a diabetic? And, you've got to live your life. You can't sit and wrap yourself in cotton wool.
Everyone's dealing with something nowadays. It's awful, but it's true. I don't compare myself to anyone else. I think diabetes doesn't live with me. I live with diabetes. So I've got to deal with it. I've got to deal with it. And just as the next person probably is dealing with something else, someone else is dealing with issues with mental health, you've got to put it into reality that end of the day, no one's perfect. No one's okay. No one is. But we all have good days, we all have bad days. You've got to put it in that perspective. I mean, as a diabetic being perfect, I don't believe any type 1 is perfect. When they ask me at clinic, how have your bloods been? How's your control? I'm like, well, as a 17-year-old type 1 diabetic, how do you think it is? Do you think it's perfect? No. I can't. Sometimes life has to come before it. And a lot of times it does because I don't want to live constantly thinking, right, diabetes, because you just become insane with thinking about it. And if you try to be that perfect every day, day in, day out, you drive yourself insane. You would. So sometimes you've got to have a break and try and just be you, not diabetic you, yeah.
I think that is incredibly inspiring. And you're thinking about university, is that right?
Definitely, yeah. So it's like coming to the stage now where I've done my mock exams, where I'm applying for uni and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm looking round, and I'll always say, so I don't ever say this to my mum, I do think my diabetes has a little bit of an effect, with the sense of I don't want to go too far, but that's my personality. I like being home anyway. I'm a home girl. I like my own bed. I like being on the doorstep. So to me, a university closer definitely is something I want, which I do believe diabetes has took a part in, because you are always a bit closer to where you are at home. But I'm so excited to live that independence day in, day out, dealing with the issues I've gone through growing up and dealing with that every single day. But I still want to be kind of close to the nest. I want to fly a little, but still be close.
I think it's such an exciting time. Like, I personally did then also realise how much my mum had taken on for me. So that was quite a realisation as well.
I think I need that bit of independence, but I don't want to be all the way down London. You know, I'd like to be at a radius where someone can always get to me, or I can always get home. I quite like the idea of that. So we'll see where life... But then I say this, I'll probably go completely against it and be studying abroad, because that's just my personality. That'll probably end up happening.
What do you hope for the future when it comes to just type 1 diabetes in general?
Well, in my eyes, technology is growing and growing and growing, and I'm so interested in the technology and where things are going. So to me, the day when I have the artificial pancreas, which we hopefully all will be wearing soon, that'd be my absolute dream. Whether in my eyes with diabetes myself, I mean, I'll continue with the attitude I've always had, that I don't let it stop me do anything. And I do believe one day we will be living in a world, we might not be there at a cure, but we will be living in a world where things are so much easier. It'll be almost like there is nothing to think about, because things are just growing and growing and growing to the point where we won't need to think about it as much as we are now. When we look at from when my auntie was diagnosed with type 1, I mean, this was 45 years ago, and boil her urine up. She was having to have a syringe where she'd have to draw up the insulin. She wouldn't know what her blood sugar is for the whole day. She'd test it about once. There was no such thing as insulin pumps like there is now. And look how much that's grown in 40 years. Another 40 years, we could be the closest to the cure.
Amazing. And you've spoken really inspiringly about what diabetes has given you despite its challenges. So here's a question. If you could go back now to 2011 and never be diagnosed, and you never had diabetes at all, would you take that? Would you send it back?
Right, that is a question. I've never been asked that. I think in my eyes, like I said, it's moulded me as who I am. And I think if I wouldn't have been diagnosed, my life would take a complete other direction. And now, because I've lived my life, I don't really want to know that other direction. I'm quite happy where I'm happy now. I'm a 17-year-old girl. I love my life, diabetes or not. Obviously, some days I want to get rid of it. I won't want anybody to deal with this horrible condition, which you don't. But whether I'd go back and change it, I don't think I'd be where I am now. And I'm doing the amazing things I am. So is it all that bad that I want to give it back? Probably not, no. But that's my outlook on it. I mean, it's made me who I am. And like I said, I've met so many great people. And I'd never want to get rid of the people I've met through diabetes. I've met some amazing people. I think we're all great. I think we're a great little team of diabetes people. I think we're great, us diabetics.
There's a strength in us, isn't there?
Definitely.
Right. And if people want to find a bit more about you, where can they find you online?
Oh, well, the Marsden JDRF. Google that and I'll come in. We have a Facebook page for our ball, which is the Promise Ball, the North. I'm trying to think now where else can I find it. I've got a Twitter page, which is Ella Marsden BCA, I believe. You'll be able to find me there. And I mean, I can give you the details, can't I? To write somewhere.
Ella, you're incredible.
Thank you.
It's an absolute honour that you've come here today, and I think we need more people like you telling stories like yours. So thank you so, so much.
Absolutely fine. I've really enjoyed it.
Yay!
I love talking about myself.
Don't we all? That's why I've got a podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Type 1 Please remember that nothing you hear on this podcast should be taken as medical advice. I'm definitely not a healthcare professional. If you like what you hear, hit subscribe and do leave a little review on iTunes if you have time. It really helps to spread the word about type 1 diabetes. You can find me at Miss Jen Greaves across all the platforms, and the podcast show notes live at missjengreaves.com. Thanks again to Dexcom UK and Ireland and Ipsomed My Life Diabetes Care for sponsoring this episode. And thank you so much for listening.